So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here. This presentation is the University of Hawaii at Manoa's College of Education, and we are going to be talking about our master degree program options to become a licensed teacher in Hawaii. So again, there's a link that you can access these slides to later, as well as a PDF of these slides in the exhibit booth hall that you can and add to your swag bag and keep for later. So really our hope is that you'll take this opportunity today to kind of listen, learn about all the options available to you, and ask clarifying questions as needed. That way, we can hopefully answer any additional questions you may have at this time. Okay, so first we'll do a brief round of introductions of the people who are here to share this information with you. And so I will let Robin go ahead and start.
Aloha all, I'm Robin Chan. I'm the director of the Masters in Early Childhood Education, which is part of the Graduate Early Childhood Education program.
How's it, everyone? I'm John Yoshioka. I'm the director and teacher in the Master of Education and Teaching program.
And unfortunately, Kahea is also another faculty member of the Master of Education and Teaching program. I don't believe she's going to be able to join us today, but she is more than happy if anyone wants to reach out after this presentation for more information. My name is Janet Kim. I'm the Special Education Recruitment Specialist, so I can help out with more of just the process, applications, pathways to teaching, more of those related questions. And then I'll pass it to Lena.
Good morning, everyone. Last but not least, I'm Lena Alakialoha. I'm a UH alum with the MEdT MEdT program at UH Manoa. And I'll be here to just kind of help with more of the, but the student perspective of going through the program. So feel free to ask any questions at any time, put it in the chat, and I'll get to it.
Okay, so what you see here on the screen are all of the programs available at the University of Hawaii at Manoa for those who already have a bachelor's degree in any field. And so we actually offer two worlds of licensure options. We have post-baccalaureate certificates. If you're interested in that, you'll actually want to come back for a different session starting at 1. But today, for the purpose of this particular session, we are going to focus specifically on our master degree options. And as you can see on the screen here, we have the Master of Education in Early Childhood Education, which does have an online hybrid kind of component to it. We have the Master of Education in Teaching program, which offers an elementary track, a secondary track, as well as dual licensure options for elementary and secondary with Hawaiian language immersion. And then we also have a Master of Education in Teaching dual licensure for secondary and special education. So to get us started, we're going to talk about some of the cool features or unique aspects of our programs here at the University of Hawaii at Manoa.
So for the College of Education, you can see there the College of Education, sense of purpose, sense of place, preparing knowledgeable, effective, caring educators. The words were chosen specifically and with a purpose. The purpose, meaning that we value the process of teaching and the opportunity to try and help the children of Hawaii to become more aware of things for the future generations. And the sense of place obviously refers to being here. And the importance of place in teaching. It's not just the fact that Hawaii has a great need for teachers, but that the field of education itself also needs Hawaii.
Yeah, and just to build off of that, there are going to be some programs that use like a national curriculum, right? Which means no matter where you are in the world, you're learning the same things. But here, At UH Manoa, we are taking into account that when we train you, we're going to train you with being mindful of this place and the unique characteristics and the needs of our own communities here in Hawaii. And so we're very proud of the fact that that is a strong sense of purpose for us, especially being the largest teacher preparation organization for our state.
You might be asking yourself, what does that look like? What am I getting myself into? And one of the things that we value in the programs talking about here is the idea of a cohort. And simply put, cohort is a collection of about 20-ish students, 20, 25, 18-ish in that area that start the program together, progress through the program together, and graduate from the program together. So you have a cohort coordinator who's with you the entire time. And what it builds, or what we found that it builds, is that sense of community and just that ability to play off and learn from one another. And we really value that highly. There's the idea of scheduling for the cohort, because we know that that group is progressing through the program at a certain pace. It allows us to schedule the courses so that, I'm sure that you've all had that experience of when, oh my God, I got to wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning to go register for the course, otherwise I'm never going to have it. You're not going to have that with the cohort model, because we can make the courses specific to the cohort. So you never have to worry about, missing out on one of the core classes, because it's already set for you. And the most important thing, I think, is that we've done the programs with and without cohorts. And what we found is that when you have a cohort model and the folks are together with the cohort coordinator, that there's higher retention and success rates and graduation rates all the way through. So that's one, a few of the reasons why we have that model.
And then another thing that you'll find across all of our teacher licensure programs is the fact that we are field-based. And what that means is we want you, when you're in the program, to not only just learn these things, about what it should be like or say things. We want you to be able to do it. And we want you to be able to practice it in a classroom from the very beginning. And so there may be programs out there where you don't actually get into the classroom kind of like halfway or towards the end of the program, but that will not be the case if you do come to one of our programs. So just know that we are field-based, which means not only are you going to be taking coursework, but you're going to be in a classroom from the very first semester in the program, so that you really can start taking the things that you're learning and contextualizing and seeing how it actually plays out. And so in order to do that, we place you with a mentor teacher. And so that's just a really great opportunity to be able to see it in action, as well as to be able to get your feet wet and kind of just take things over gradually over time. And so, you don't need to figure that all out on your own. As John already talked about, every cohort has a cohort coordinator, which means it's that one person who's guiding you throughout this entire process, and they will help find appropriate placements and mentors and things like that. So you don't need to worry about it. We just want to make sure that you're well aware that, yes, we do want you to be practicing everything that you're learning as you go throughout. And so by doing that, you're going to have really rich field experiences in your program so that you're better prepared once you graduate to have your own classroom. And so it does start out where it's a little bit more course heavy and less days and time in the school settings. And then it kind of flips. And in the second part of your program, it becomes definitely more heavy, where you're going to end your program with a student teaching experience. And student teaching means Monday to Friday, you get to experience what it's like to be a teacher before you graduate. And that it's usually the final semester, but not necessarily. We'll go over more details by program once we go into the specifics for each. And then the last thing we want to mention is, because all of you will already have earned a bachelor's degree, it may be possible that some of our candidates do get employed They might already be teaching, they might become an emergency hired teacher. If that happens, it may be possible for you to continue your work in the classroom and use it towards your field experiences. However, everything has to be reviewed and approved on a case-by-case basis. So if you feel like that's going to be something specific to you, you're going to want to reach out early and reach out in advance to give context on your personal situation. And the coordinators of that program can help you determine whether or not the on-the-job option for field work will be available to you. And lastly, one unique thing about UH Manoa is that we do offer what we call dual certification options. Otherwise, what John refers to as multiple options for multi-talented individuals. And basically, a dual certification is a really awesome opportunity because you're getting the biggest bang for your buck. And what we mean by that is that you're going to get licensed in 2 different fields in the same amount of time. So it's just a matter of when you graduate, you're going to have 2 teaching licenses rather than 1. In addition, the areas that we have available for dual certification are specialized skill sets. Okay, so we have one for special education and we have one for Hawaiian language immersion within the MEdT program. Those are 2 high need fields that have specialized skill sets. So not only are you getting 2 different teaching licenses, but you're getting a skill set that will help support more students within your own situation and classrooms. And of course, that leads to the last thing, which means once you graduate and you're looking for a job, now you have more available to you because you can get licensed across those things, and administrators are very appreciative to have a teacher who can actually support, especially if you're living in more rural, remote areas where there's not as many people to pick from. You become even more of an asset because look, you have the training, you have the skills, you have the knowledge to be able to teach across different things.
We wanted to share with you next, just so you have an idea of what we want teachers to be and what we believe in, are the College of Education's professional dispositions. What happened with these is that all the teacher education programs got together and determined what characteristics we believe would make or would be necessary for the best teachers that that we have. So you can read what's there. We came up with 5: professionalism, communication, collaboration, reflection, and diversity. And those things are what would be called requirements, because we're looking at you being able to do those things in space within the classes at the university, within the placements at the schools, and everywhere from the interview all the way through your graduation. And they're assessed every semester. So that's a quick view of what we expect to have happen with the teachers.
And then the last thing we want to share is that, for us, we know how important it is to not only train our candidates to be prepared and be effective from the time they get out of the classroom, but we will be committed to you even after you graduate. So during the program, if you do get emergency hired in special education, because that is the highest area of need, we do have a really, really unique mentoring program called MUSE, which means Mentoring Unique Special Educators. So because you're no longer going to have that classroom mentor that you're watching and observing, and you're just teaching on your own, our mentors are full-time mentors who were previous Hawaii DOE special education teachers, and their full-time job is to just support you. So they come in and they say, how can I help you today? Whether it's paperwork, whether it's setting up the classroom, whether it's anything like that. And so our MUSE mentoring program is one of the most unique features related to our special education licensure options. I know Lena has had a MUSE mentor, and so she can also talk about, her experiences with that. But not only that, for when you're in the program, we have another program called SONG, which is supporting our new graduates, which supports all graduates from UH Manoa licensure programs. After you graduate, our doors are still open. For the next 2 years, we actually have faculty mentors who are there to support you if you still need something once you're out in the field. So maybe you got trained in math and then you get hired and you have 2 classes of science and you're like, I didn't get any preparation in science. I need some help. Then you would contact us through Song and you'd say, hey, I'm expected to teach science. Are there any resources or anything that anyone can share with me? And you can get that support. So just know that here at the University of Hawaii at Manoa, we're not only dedicated to making sure that you have a really rich and valuable teacher training experience, but that we will be committed to you even after you graduate. And so now what we're going to do is talk a little bit about the pathway to teaching so that you kind of understand the requirements that are needed, and then we'll go over the specific program details. So the first thing to know is that when you're going to come to the University of Hawaii at Manoa, our programs is level specific, which means if you want to do early childhood, you pursue one of our early childhood licensure programs. If you want to do elementary, then you need to find an elementary one. And then if you like working with older students in middle or high schools, then you need to pursue a secondary licensure program. So a lot of the programs, actually almost all of them, are specific to the licensure age or level that you want to teach. So always think about that first. And then when you do go into secondary, if you're interested in middle and high school, also be mindful that you need to pick a content area that you want to teach. And so think about that when you're choosing a program. The second thing to think about is there is something called an ADA field in Hawaii, which means once you become a licensed teacher, that is not the only thing you'll ever be able to teach in your career. You can always pursue other licensure fields without having to come back and do the same program again. And we call that an ADA field. So when you're looking to become a licensed teacher, the main priority is making sure you find the right program that's going to prepare you in the field that you want to start with. And then you'll have options to either come back for more schooling later, or other things that you can add new things to your field. Don't feel like you need to find a single program that licenses you in everything all at once. Okay. And then the last thing to note is one of the greatest things about becoming a teacher is everybody needs teachers everywhere. And so becoming a teacher is a very portable profession. We do have reciprocity through the NASDTech agreement that says if you get licensed here in Hawaii and you end up moving to another state, it's likely you'll just take your license with you, and that state might have like either an entrance test or an interview process or something you need to do, but you wouldn't have to start fresh and go back to school for another licensure program. And so just know that Hawaii is part of the NASDTech, which means you can take your Hawaii license and teach in other states as well.
Janet, there's a couple of questions in the chat, and it's actually quite the opposite, where it seems like some of them have a teaching certificate from someplace outside the US, and then another person with a bachelor's degree in ed therapy from a foreign university. And she's more just asking like what program would suit her best. But what is the deal if, say, they have a teaching certificate from elsewhere?
Perfect. It's actually on this slide. So in the middle, so to be licensed in Hawaii, you have to have a license. And if you don't have any licenses at all, then you need to complete what we call a state approved teacher education program, SATEP for short. So you might see that on things. This event today is focusing on all the SATEP programs in Hawaii. So these programs are all state approved. If you already have a license from somewhere else, the first place you will actually want to go is to the Hawaii Teacher Standards Board, HTSB, because what a lot of people don't realize is UH Manoa is not actually issuing you the license. We issue your names that validate that you have completed the appropriate SATEP program, and your licenses will always come from the Hawaii Teacher Standards Board. So that would be a great first stop. That booth is here. They might have somebody available throughout today's event where you can specifically go and talk to them. Otherwise, you can make an appointment. So yes, if you need to either check valid or see if it transfers or anything related to licensing should go to the Hawaii Teacher Standards Board. In terms of figuring out which program might be the best fit for you, hopefully that's what the end of this presentation will kind of help you with. So once we go through each program, you might have a better idea. And just know that if you are going to complete one of these CETEP programs, another thing to know is that it means that it has coursework and it also has field work, which is that student teaching component that we talked about earlier. So if you find a program and it's called education, but it has no student teaching in it, I can pretty much guarantee you that will not get you a teaching license. So be very careful. I think a big misunderstanding sometimes is that people see the word education and think it leads to a license. Not necessarily. Not all programs in education will lead to a teacher license. It needs to be CETEP approved. Go ahead, Robin.
Yeah, can I interject? Because I think that is a common area of misconception in early childhood. We get a little confused because many programs, there are masters and there are baccalaureate programs, and often they are not a teacher license program, and they may be housed in a psych department or a family and child studies department. And so knowing that, because a lot of early childhood happens outside of the public schools, the purpose of coming through a teacher license program where you carry a teacher license generally is because you're wanting to seek a job in the public school system where you are required to carry a teacher license. Thank you.
And then I think that leads perfectly into this next slide, Robin, where you're trying to talk about the differences for early childhood. So go ahead.
Yes, you also want to have the correct license for what you want to do. So early childhood generalists, like in most public pre-Ks, will have a generalist birth through 5 in some states, but in our college we carry a PKK or a PK3 license. Special education is like 2 specialties at once. Special education and early childhood are specialization areas. So if your goal is to teach in a special education preschool classroom through 3rd, then you will want to seek the type of program that is both licensing you in that age group and in that content area. And yeah, just not to confuse it with the setting that you're working for being licensed, because childcare settings are licensed. But this is what we're talking about, is you carrying a license as a teacher.
Right. And I'll just add to that, the reason we actually point this out is because a lot of people don't realize that not all public schools have an early childhood generalist setting. Almost all of them will have a preschool, but it's specific to special education. There's a large majority of the preschools in the public school setting are specific to special education. However, the trends are changing, and over the next 5 years, we're envisioning that more early childhood settings will become available. And so just keep that in mind, but currently that's how it is. Yes, go ahead and ask a question.
Yes. Hi, Janet. My name is Sue. I'm a Canadian certified teacher. So the question that is pertinent to Andre and the other person, it answered some of my questions. But Isabella, Andre and Isabella, the question here, my question is, it says pre-K to pre-K, kindergarten to K to 3, ECE license. You were talking about that just now. So are all the schools, they have this ECE, like a kindergarten setting, and they accept the teachers who have the ECE license, right? But is it different? ECE license is different from teacher licensure? Teacher license?
It's a in the United States, or in the states the states make difference. So the early childhood license is very, very different, every different state at this point in time. But this would be a teacher license to teach in public schools in that age group that you are licensed for by your whoever was your state approved teacher education program that recommended you for license.
Oh, so but if you want to teach in the school, you need a Hawaii teacher license, right?
In public schools, yes.
Yeah. So if you have to teach in PK K to 3, PK K to 3, you still need the teacher license as well as ECE license.
Well, it just depends. Yeah, it'll depend. So you could either have it depends. If you want to teach kindergarten, you could have the early childhood license, which includes kindergarten. You can also have an elementary license, which includes kindergarten. The biggest thing is Hawaii Teacher Standards Board. Are they issuing you a license? And if they are, then you're eligible to teach in the public schools.
Oh. But if you have to teach in kindergarten, you don't need the ECE license. If you have only teacher license, you can apply, right?
Yeah. If you have a K to 6 elementary license, you can still teach that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so now let's go ahead and actually go over the programs that we offer so that you can get a little bit more information. And then that way, if it is something that you're interested in, while we might not be able to go into too much detail during this short session, you'll have the contact information to set up an advising appointment afterwards.
So first thing to do, I think, is to answer the question, why a master's degree and why do that? You can think of the master's degrees more as a kind of amped up, more focused version of your bachelor's degree, where you're taking a real deep look at your interests, applying them in space in the classrooms, and doing research on it to try and figure out whether or not what you think may be happening is actually happening. So in order to do that, there's what we call a Plan B. It's a non-thesis research project, and it usually entails action research or some other kind of educational research on some sort of topic or interest that you have within the classroom usually, and you come up with a study on that. And second thing is the idea of leadership, and it's not an idea per se. It's more of we expect that out of our graduates because we want them to be advocates for change. I mean, you can do things, but if you don't do anything, that's not a good thing. So we want you to be able to advocate for change for your students, the schools, the community that you're in, and also to be able to advance the things within those contexts as well.
And so we only have about 10 minutes. So I'm just gonna, when you get these slides, you can see some of the differences between them, but I'm gonna go ahead and let Robin just kind of give a quick overview of the MED in early childhood.
Okay, the MED in early childhood is a statewide program right now. And some people come for initial license, some people come for adding a field, and some people are not planning to work in the public schools. And there are some three classes that we ask people to take as prereqs to it. And I could talk to you more about it if you want more information.
And I'll just point out that the 3.0 GPA requirement is a University of Hawaii at Manoa policy. So all of our master's degrees will have that 3.0 GPA.
Right now, we have a format that's a summer intensive. So people come on ground. So you must be committed to coming on ground for a month full time. And then during the year, this is a program that mostly serves working professionals throughout the state. So they are in a variety of kinds of early childhood jobs. And what works for them is to come and intensively do 9 credits each summer. During the year, they are mainly in their settings working. Because of that, they also often are doing their field in place as a part of, if they want to do license as part of their program. We have a plan to do an evening weekend if there are the resources available. You can skip this slide.
Yeah, so again, we're not actually going to go like all the
Yeah.
classes and all. We don't have time for that, but we wanted to put it in here so you do have access to it. So just
Yeah.
make sure you refer back to these slides if you'd like to see the
Yeah.
actual courses. And we even have samples of the scheduling of what it would look like by each semester.
I think the main thing to get out of that is it's 30 credits for the master's itself and 12 credits if you want license, and that's woven into your school year, fall, spring. There's field work during that time.
Okay, so I'm going to try and do what Robin did and give you the super abridged version of the MEdT program. We've been around for a long time, over 30 years, and we have a bunch of really successful graduates, not only in the teaching profession, Teachers of the Year and all that kind of thing, but in other settings as well, like the new president of the East-West Center is an MEdT graduate. It's a 2-year program, and we offer it in a face-to-face, well, when we can actually do face-to-face model, and also a statewide version for for the folks on the neighbor islands. Eligibility, very similar, 3.0 GPA, but ours is a little bit different because we have an elementary track and we have a secondary track. So elementary, if you want to think of it in the biggest picture, is kind of a generalist thing, where you'd have to show competence and background in language arts, mathematics, science, and social studies. And you can read there, basically it's 3 classes in each, one has to be up to division. If you wanted to do secondary, obviously you'd have to have that kind of experience and competence in content area. Could be a content major, could be classes, could be a bunch of different things, but it's a requirement of a minimum of 30 semester hours or a degree in that particular area. And for certain other areas, like if you wanted to go into Hawaiian language immersion, there's a gateway class, and for the special education, SPED 304 is that gateway as well.
And again, we do have advisors that can sit down with each of you and actually help you determine whether or not these eligibility criteria are met.
Program options, we offer the elementary and secondary, and like I said, face-to-face and hybrid. The elementary secondary immersion is also face-to-face hybrid, and the secondary special ed dual certification is hybrid. Program overview, like Janet said, you can kind of scroll through that, but that gives you an idea of what the classes look like each semester, and what kinds of things you'd pretty much be taking.
And so, yeah, so feel free to look back at this. There was a simpler version and a little bit of a more detailed version here. But we're going to end this session. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Before you get into this slide, can I just give a little piece? I'll just close out with the MEdT part, and then you can talk about the funding, because that's a huge deal, right? As students and then people trying to live in Hawaii, it's like we all know it's expensive. And so definitely pay attention to the funding opportunities that Janet's going to go over. I just want to take a couple minutes just to review my experiences and share with you guys why I would choose a program, one of the programs with UH Manoa, more specifically the MEdT and SPED dual certification program. I mean, first off, when you look at the pay scale, which Janet will get into in a little bit, if you do the dual cert, you're already leaving the program with that many more credits that's going to help you get higher on the pay scale as an entry teacher. And so that's definitely something to think about. I seen Isabella's question, and she was asking, what program would be more suitable for me? Would it be the master plus SPED degree or the post-baccalaureate? And I also had that same question. I went to a presentation that Janet did at KCC on the island of Kauai, and I solidified my decision after she said, the MEdT program is only 6 months longer than the post-bac. And I was like, well, that's just, it's a no-brainer, right? And with 6 months more time, you end up with so many more credits, you start higher on the pay scale. And from there, you're kind of just, you know, you just work to get higher and higher on the pay scale. But more so, as John mentioned earlier, Mr. Yoshioka, he talked about the cohorted model, and that's a big thing, especially when you're in a hybrid program. You know, it's great that we have that distance learning component, because I can live on Kauai and collaborate with someone on Maui and someone on Oahu. But more so, it's like, it's that relatability and going through the program with people who understand exactly what you need to do or exactly what your vision is. And so you have that relatability, you have a support system, someone else to help keep you organized, because most times we are parents, we're teachers, we're students, and we're trying to juggle all of this. And so to have somebody else who, again, understands exactly what you're going through to help keep you organized is huge. And that was definitely a big thing for me. Experiences and motivation is also something else you share with the cohorted model. You know, you can relate with people and talk about your experiences. And as Janet said, you're in the field from the very beginning. So from the very beginning, you're implementing everything you're learning, but you're also being able to reflect with all of these other people who are on the same track as you. And then along with that, support from faculty. We went through the Muse programs. You see Mr. Yoshioka, he's a program director, but also very huge support. I was part of cohort 51. We're rather rambunctious, but really strong and smart, determined women, trust me. But, you know, when we had issues, he was right there to sit down with us in the classroom, face to face, talk about it, and help us to work through our issues. The instructors were definitely reasonable. When things came up and we were having issues with whether it was a coursework or the instructor or whatever, program directors, our field supervisors, everybody just kind of came in and said, okay, how can we help you? How can we make this better? Why isn't this working for you? You know, we understand you're stressed, but we want to help alleviate that. And so that support system is huge within this program. And I think across the entire College of Education. But that was my personal experience with the MEdT dual cert. And then also with regard to the dual licensure thing, Janet mentioned it just a little bit, but the flexibility in the teaching field is huge. So you can teach SPED, right? And with your SPED licensure, you could be teaching inclusion English. You could be teaching fully self-contained students. Whether you want it to be mild or moderate is your decision. But there's also an issue with every year your line possibly changing. And say you need to go to, say, social studies, right? If you're certified in social studies, you don't have that issue of somebody saying, hey, you're not certified to teach in that field, so I can bump you out. And you won't have that problem because you've got that dual cert. So it's that flexibility, but also just you being able to feel safe that you have a job, right? And that you're teaching in the area that you are certified in. So having those options are huge. And then the special education portion of this program is huge and it's beneficial to anyone. So even if you're thinking like, oh no, I don't need that because I'm going to be a gen ed teacher and I'm just going to teach math and that's that. No, like the SPED portion is huge, and it gives you these strategies and resources that benefit any teacher, that help any teacher to be that much more effective, and helps you with the shift in thinking that's required for, I don't know, just your ability to engage your students, right? And you think on a different level and you see them differently, the students and everything. And it's because you've got all these other universal resources that apply to anyone. It can be your high flyers or your students with disabilities. It doesn't matter, and everyone in between. So even, like I said, even if you're thinking about, I'm just gonna go gen ed, it's like that dual cert program is, it's universally beneficial in all of the ways that you can think of. Thank you, Janet.
Well, I'm going to bring you everywhere with me. Okay, just so you know. So that was great. Thank you. So I know funding is a huge issue. We do have tons of opportunities at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. So here real quickly, when you get the slides, it'll just break down what our current tuition rates are. But more importantly, you know, because you're coming to this public institution, right, you have access to everything. we highly encourage everyone do the financial aid forms. We have so many scholarships. You would spend hours browsing through the various scholarships available through the UH Manoa system. Outside of that, we also have local and national scholarships. So when you get these slides, anything that's underlined will be hyperlinked. And so feel free to go through and start looking at what's available to you. For early childhood education, hopefully in the next couple of years, there's going to be more. But here are some. Robin has been gracious to kind of go ahead and actually funnel down some, so you can search for these ones when you go into the scholarship system, as well as there's federal money because the shortage is everywhere. It's not just Hawaii. And so there is something called the Teach Grant. If you want to teach in one of these high need fields in yellow up above, that will give you about $8,000 while you're in the program and would qualify you for up to $17,500 of loan forgiveness, which means it can wipe out your loans after you've been teaching a certain number of years. So again, make sure you check these out if you are interested in English, math, science, special education, world languages, or Hawaiian immersion at this time, because you can take advantage of those. Now, more specifically to UH Manoa and our programs is we have two unique funding sources. We're at the very end, but let's go ahead and give a quick overview. So the GOO is our general education licensure funding from the state Senate that says, hey, we'll provide you 34 credits towards the Master of Education in Teaching program if you're willing to teach in a Hawaii public school for 3 years after you graduate. Please contact us if you are interested in this. And very similarly, we also have a special education license funding. We just call it our SPED stipends, which will give you 31 credits if you pursue the dual certification option in secondary and SPED. The biggest difference is that the GOO does have a priority list. You have to apply for it. Only a certain number can be selected because of the amount of funding that's available, whereas the SPED is an all or nothing. If the DOE provides the funding, then every single person who applies to this program would automatically receive the option to take these funds in return for teaching SPED for 3 years in any public school after they graduate. And
can I jump in real quick?
Mhm.
So just so everybody knows, I received the stipend because I did the MEdT dual cert, and just to help you give you an overview of like, okay, well, what am I going to have to pay? Like each semester, it was only a little over $1,000. So if you are looking at those other scholarships and getting extra money, then odds are you're going to have like other money to spend on your computer or whatever other supplies that you might need for your distance learning setting. So it's really like it covers a big chunk of your schooling.
Thank you for that. And then we did just add in the teacher salaries slides in here just so you can refer to it, but I definitely suggest you come to the DOE presentation towards the end of this event so that you could learn more about that. And again, here's all our contact information. So thank you so much for joining us today. If you have more questions for Lena, I know she'll be available in our Speducator Project drop-in session later today from 1 to 2:30, along with some of the other SPED teachers. So maybe if you're just like, I don't know if special education is going to be good for me or the right fit, definitely go in and check them out. Otherwise, later on today, we'll go over the funding and all of that stuff similarly in the post-bac certificate presentation if you'd like to join that as well, because most people, they have to decide, yeah, should I go post-bac certificate or should I go master? So I highly encourage you to join us as well. So thank you again. These slides are up in our exhibit booth, and let us, please reach out, come join one of our booths later if you want more information. And thank you. So you can head off. You might have another session that you want to join into. So go back into the auditorium, choose the next time slot, and then keep checking out all the different options that are available to you today. And we hope that you will be reaching out to us later so that we can set up an individualized advising appointment and help you get started on next steps, whatever you decide.
Sue, you have a question?
Yes, hi, Lena. It says here, Masters in Education, Early Childhood Education, so that is ECA, MEd ECA, right, program. So the master's program is in Early Childhood Education, which will allow the teachers to teach right from pre-K to kindergarten, then all the way up, right? Pre-K to K3.
I think it depends a
Mhm.
lot. The program itself was not initially designed for license. However, many people in the field of early childhood come in sideways through kids and after they've done other things in their lives and are working people in low wage jobs, right? And so it's often a matter of trying to balance out on multiple things and what can happen in terms of a job, um, and what we can support people through license. It depends on many, many factors. Um, Typically, the people who are working on license in this program have been working in the field a while, have come through, several degrees that are non-licensed in early childhood, and are planning to work the whole time because they're maintaining their livelihoods. And so in their case, the most appropriate kind of license we can support them in getting is a PKK license.
Oh.
I would say that, if you really are looking for that range of K through 3, and that's more your interest, that a better fit is the full-time MEdT program. It won't get you a PK license. But in this state, PK is such a baby field that doesn't have many jobs at this point in time. You may add a field in early childhood later on. But really, if you want that range of K through 3, I would tell you, go talk to John right now, because that program is more built around being full-time and embedded in practicums. What the MEdECE is trying to do is to help people who have been in the field for a long time, and yet as the state begins to start funding early childhood classrooms, they're shut out from those jobs that pay about 40% more than what they have, even though they have a lot of experience and may have several degrees in the area already, just not licensed degrees.
No.
So, yeah.
So this program will lead to the licensing for the teachers to teach in early childhood education, ECE.
In ECE.
Mhm.
And the goal of the teachers in the program really is PKK
Mhm. And
primarily,
they,
you know.
and then they will be placed on the same salary range as the teachers.
If they, if they work in public schools, they will
Mhm.
be having public school salary range.
Mhm.
There are very few public school or pre-K classrooms in this state. You know, if you're moving to other states, there are some pretty robust systems where all the
Yeah.
kids, but in Hawaii, in the public pre-Ks at this point in time serve about 2 to 4% of the eligible 4-year-olds. So it's a very small public pre-K
Yeah.
system in
Yeah.
Hawaii right now.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Thanks for the clarification, because where I come from in Canada, EC is completely separate. So they're not, even though the programs are offered as after school hours in the daycare system, they're not taught in the schools. Like pre-K program is there, but they still have to be the teacher certified. They have to get a teacher certification.
Yeah.
So if they are if they have the ECE certification, they work only in the daycares, starting from infant to age 4 or even
Yeah,
after school.
it is something that it is a field, you know, internationally where the laws that apply are so different from state, you know, province to province, I would guess, even in Canada. National systems in a few places,
Yeah.
but many places it's just a big patchwork. It's very hard for people in the field to navigate. Yeah.
So sorry, I'm going to have to just
Okay,
jump
okay.
in because I don't want people to miss out on, and we want to
Okay,
respect the other people that will be presenting during the next time slot.
Okay.
I personally will be in our exhibitor booth for the College of Education, available for chat, meaning you have questions, you want specific information, please join me right now in that booth if you are interested. If it's more specific to early childhood, Robin is our person in our
Robin?
university.
You
So,
can just email me and we
yeah,
can
so please,
have a talk another
Uh-huh.
time.
yeah. So
Okay.
please reach out
All
to
right.
Robin because she's the only person who truly understands the detailed intricacies related to early childhood education. So thank you again for everyone who attended. Thanks to my colleagues who were able to join today for this presentation. And hopefully you'll join us for more presentations throughout the day at UH Manoa. But thank you again. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Enjoy the rest of the event.